A Phase 3 study of an experimental Alzheimer's drug is being hailed by medical experts as revolutionary. The drug, known as Lecanemab, slowed cognitive decline in some patients, which spanned 18 months and enrolled nearly 1,800 participants with early-stage Alzheimer's. The data was presented earlier this week.
This is a definite advance.
Dr. Stephen Salloway is a professor of neurology and psychiatry at Brown University.
This is the first time that we have a trial that shows clearly positive results, a medicine that lowers amyloid plaques, a key part of the disease, and looks like it slows down the disease process. So what it represents to me for the first time is that we may have a treatment that can slow Alzheimer's disease. And that's something very sort of revolutionary.
But the experimental drug from the companies Eisai and Biogen may also carry a risk of serious side effects for certain patients. Lecanemab was associated with a dangerous type of brain swelling in nearly 13% of patients in the trial. Some patients also experienced bleeding in the brain. Dr. Ronald Peterson, director of the Mayo Clinic Alzheimer's Research Center and the Mayo Clinic Study of Aging, said clinicians would have to thoroughly go over all of the side effects with a patient looking at taking lecanemab.
The drug can cause increased swelling in the brain and can cause bleeding in the brain. Generally, these can be monitored carefully with MRI scans, and often they're not symptomatic. And so if you stop the treatment, the side effects will resolve. But nevertheless, these are potentially real and potentially serious side effects with regard to bleeding in the brain. But again, I think they're relatively low frequency and can be monitored.
The Alzheimer's Association has called on U.S. regulators to approve the company's application for accelerated approval. Dr. Salloway says this drug could change the future of the disease.
We need to move the field forward, and having this treatment opens the door. It's not just this medicine. It's a whole way of treating Alzheimer's. That's what's revolutionary about it, is that we now would require a molecular diagnosis where someone has a specific test to confirm that they have the pathology of Alzheimer's. And then we'd have a way of monitoring this treatment over time. And soon, the way we're going to detect the amyloid changes with a blood test. And that's really revolutionary too.
He's not actually using a keyboard. He's moving the cursor with his mind.
At Elon Musk's much-awaited show-and-tell event for his brain implant company Neuralink, the world's richest person shared video of a monkey typing telepathically as he seeks to begin clinical trials for a wireless brain chip in human beings.
The monkeys actually enjoy doing the demos because they get the banana smoothie, and it's kind of a fun game.
The billionaire said he expects approval from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to conduct human trials in 6 months after the company missed earlier timelines set by him.
We've been working hard to be ready for our first human, and obviously we want to be extremely careful and certain that it will work well before putting a device in a human.
Musk has also set the bar high, saying the brain chip could help disabled patients to move and communicate again, and that it would also aim to restore vision to people who were born blind.
Yeah, even if they've never seen before, we're confident that they could see.
The Tesla CEO, who also runs rocket company SpaceX and social media platform Twitter, is known for lofty goals such as colonizing Mars. As for Neuralink, Musk said he wants to develop a chip that would allow the brain to control complex electronic devices and eventually allow people with paralysis to regain motor function.
I mean, as miraculous as it may sound, we're confident that it is possible to restore full-body functionality to someone who has a severed spinal cord.
But current and former employees said Neuralink is running behind schedule, having repeatedly missed internal deadlines to gain FDA approval to start trials in people. It's also running behind competitors. Reuters reported in August that Musk approached rival brain chip firm Synchron, which received U.S. regulatory clearance for human trials in 2021, about a potential investment after he expressed frustration to Neuralink employees about their slow progress.
The U.S. Justice Department scored a major victory this week when a jury found Stuart Rhodes, the founder of the far-right Oath Keepers militia group, and Kelly Meggs, the leader of the Oath Keepers Florida chapter, guilty of the rare charge of seditious conspiracy, determining that the defendants plotted to use force to block Congress from certifying Joe Biden's 2020 election victory over Donald Trump. It's the most serious criminal offense yet leveled in connection with the January 6th insurrection, and marked the first time in nearly 3 decades that federal prosecutors won a conviction for seditious conspiracy. After the convictions, Attorney General Merrick Garland said the DOJ would press on with its efforts to investigate and prosecute those accused of participating in the Capitol riot.
The department will work tirelessly to hold accountable those responsible for crimes related to the attack on our democracy on January 6, 2021.
But the verdict was not a total win for the government. The same jury that convicted Rhodes acquitted 3 other defendants of the conspiracy charge, finding them guilty instead of lesser crimes. That shows just how difficult it can be to prosecute, according to Alan Rosenstein, associate professor of law at the University of Minnesota.
I don't think there's a big appetite at DOJ to use seditious conspiracy broadly, both because it's not an easy charge to establish, and also because I think there's a recognition that the point of having such a serious charge as seditious conspiracy is that you use it sparingly. You use it to signal that this defendant was particularly bad, and that if you use it generally, you dilute its force, and also you risk some blowback if people view you as overreaching.
Seditious conspiracy is defined by U.S. law as attempting, quote, to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States. The charge is part of a statute that dates back to the U.S. Civil War of the 1860s. It carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. The last time a case was successfully brought was in 1995 against a Muslim cleric and some of his followers accused of planning bombings and assassinations in the U.S. After the verdicts this week, attorneys for Rhodes said they believe the government failed to fully make the case against their client.
We're disappointed with the guilty verdict. We feel like that we presented a case which showed through evidence and testimony that Mr. Rhodes did not commit the crime of seditious conspiracy. There was no evidence introduced to indicate that there was a plan to attack the Capitol.
This week's trial and outcome raises questions about how the Justice Department will fare in 2 more trials scheduled to begin in December involving defendants charged with seditious conspiracy. Those defendants include other members of the Oath Keepers, as well as members of another right-wing group, the Proud Boys.
Proud Boys!
Rosenstein said that while the top charge may be hard to prove, the DOJ has proven it can win over jurors, and that might weigh on defendants.
When a defendant is now thinking about, do I really want to roll the dice in front of a jury? Well, a jury just returned a guilty verdict on seditious conspiracy. Maybe I should take the plea, the plea deal.
U.S. President Joe Biden's plan to cancel billions of dollars in student debt is headed to the Supreme Court. The justices on Thursday agreed to hear the White House's case to push ahead with the debt relief after a lower court blocked the program.
My campaign for president, I made a commitment. That would provide student debt relief, and I'm honoring that commitment today.
Biden announced in August that the government would forgive up to $10,000 in student loan debt for borrowers making up to $125,000 a year, or $250,000 for married couples. Lower-income college graduates would see up to $20,000 forgiven. But Republican attorneys general from 6 states sued to block the program, arguing the debt forgiveness deprived them of tax revenue. And last month, the St. Louis-based 8th Circuit Court of Appeals blocked the debt relief from going forward. Also last month, a Texas federal judge ruled the program unconstitutional and likewise issued a nationwide halt to the program. Biden's administration has said that more than 26 million borrowers have applied for loan relief, and 16 million applications have been approved for discharge if allowed by the courts. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office in September calculated that the debt forgiveness program would cost taxpayers about $400 billion. In agreeing to hear the arguments, the justices said they would leave the injunction on dismissing debts in place until the case could be decided.
Wall Street ended mixed on Thursday as a sell-off in Salesforce weighed on the Dow, hitting investors with a reality check after Wednesday's rally and ahead of Friday's jobs report. The Dow ended about 0.5% lower, the S&P 500 finished only slightly lower, and the Nasdaq saw a fractional gain. The mood on Thursday was a stark contrast from the day before, when Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell signaled it was time to slow the pace of interest rate hikes, sparking a surge in the stock market. James Demmert, founder and chief investment officer at Main Street Research, says Wall Street might have gotten ahead of itself.
I think today investors are recognizing that, hey, is this just another bear market trap? And so you sort of see some selling, some buying as people are performance chasing, but lots of selling meeting that. The Dow down a lot more than the other indexes because Salesforce down 10%, which is a big part of that index. So I think it's the day after. You've got a lot going on, but certainly a big rally yesterday.
Salesforce recovered some losses, but still ended down more than 8% after the software maker said Brett Taylor would step down as co-CEO in January, raising questions in investors' minds about why he was leaving the company. Dollar General slipped 7.5% after the discount retailer cut its annual profit forecast, while Costco shed 6.5% after the membership-only retail chain reported slower sales growth in November. But shares of some mega-cap growth stocks rose, including Apple, Facebook owner Meta Platforms, and Netflix, helping the Nasdaq finish in the green.